Okay, I've already given you a detailed explanation of an elementary school classroom in a slum, right? Uh, Today we are going to just sum up all the stanzas. Paraphrasing we have done. We have read each line in detail, and this is the sum up session now, right? So, Vidyanshi, please switch on your video and start reading the stanza.
The poem describes a primary school in a slum. Children studying in the slum classrooms depict the social injustice and perpetual
Vidyanshi,
poverty.
your voice is not clear, beta. Mic adjust करके बोलिए.
Uh, Children studying in the slum classroom depict the social injustice and per- perpetual poverty prevailing among the slum dwellers. In the first stanza, Spender describes the miserable condition of the children. The faces of the children are unlike the usual children of schools. Instead of being exuberant and energetic, they are like rootless weeds, withered and worn out. They are unclean and untidy, as they are malnourished, sick and hungry. Just as just as weeds are not wanted in the garden, so are the children of the slum unwanted in the society. They have pale faces, their hair is uncombed, a tall slim girl has her head bowed down as though she is exhausted physically because of malnutrition and emotionally because of poverty. The other students of the class are also in the same situation. There is a boy who is as thin as paper, again because of malnutrition and lack of civic amenities.
Right. Now, the poem, we can see the central idea, the central theme of the poem is he is showing us about the children, the condition of the children who are studying in a slum. They depict the social injustice and the perpetual poverty prevailing among the slum dwellers. They condition the injustice which is socially being done to them, their filthy environment in which they are living, the burdensome life which they are leading. That is all the poet wants to show, especially to the people who are at power, who are in power at that time. Now, in the opening stanza, Spender describes the condition of the children. He talks about the faces of the children, their pale faces, their hair, scattered hair, and instead of being exuberant or energetic, these children are like compared to rootless weeds. They are because they're uncared, they're unwanted, so they're compared to rootless weeds. Here, simile is used here, and they are unclean and untidy as they are sick, hungry, malnutrition, because they do not get sufficient food to feed themselves. Just as weeds are not allowed in the garden, so are these children of the slum unwanted in the society. Similarly, these children are also unwanted in the society. They have pale faces, their hair is uncombed. A tall, slim girl has her head bowed down as though she is exhausted physically because of malnutrition and emotionally because of poverty, right? So the girl is malnutrition, she's not fed herself properly, and because of poverty, she is burdened. The other students of the class are also in the same situation. There is a boy who is as thin as a paper, right? So the paper seeming boy, this is a metaphor used here. And because of the lack of nutrition and civic amenities, the child seems to be thin as a paper, right? Moving on to the next passage. Please continue.
He has eyes. He has eyes like that of a rat, searching for food and betterment. Another child in the class, who is a victim of genetic disorder, has glare bones and stunted growth. He has inherited his debilitating disease from his father and recites his lessons from his desk in a mellow and weak voice in one corner of this poorly lit and ill-equipped class.
Now, in the second stanza, the poet describes, in the first stanza only, he has eyes like that of a rat, that is paper-seeming boy with rat's eyes. So the boy has rat's eyes searching for food and betterment. If you have ever seen a rat, he's moving in a fast direction, he's looking around, his eyes are every time searching for something to bite. So the boy has a rat's eyes. Another child in the class who is a victim of a genetic disorder. There's another child who is a victim of a genetic disease, has gnarled bones and stunted growth. So his bones are twisted, right? And his growth is also not appropriate as a human growth. He has inherited this disease from his father. So his condition tells us about his father's disease, which he has hired from him. So it's like heredity. So what the father is suffering from, the child has also received, right? So his condition tells us about his father's disease also. And this boy is taking a lesson from his mellow and weak voice. And in one corner of the poorly lit and ill-equipped class is a sweet, unnoticed young child lost in the world of his dreams. So at the corner of this classroom is one child whose eyes are full of dreams and he is lost in his own world. The dull and monotonous classroom does not interest him, and hence his mind deviates towards the squirrel in a tree room. He too dreams of fun and frolic in an open space. This child, whose eyes are filled with dreams, he is not in the class. He's physically in the class, but he is not able to concentrate. He is looking outside the window in the tree house where the squirrel lives. So he can see the squirrel jumping from one branch to another. Now, I discussed this thing earlier also. Squirrels are very active and very prompt kind of creatures. Within a blink of eyes, they move from one branch to another. So he is busy. This boy is having a glance at the squirrel's game and is enjoying himself. He dreams of the fun and frolic in open space. So he is not much interested in the class. Vidanshi, please continue afterwards in the second stanza.
In one corner of his poorly lit and ill-equipped class is a sweet, unnoticed young.
Vidyanshi, your voice is very slow. I don't know what reason hai. I'm not able to. Somebody else can read out. Nilima Jain, is your connection stable? Can you read? Nilima Jain. Darshika Jain, unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
Beta, please read. Or thoda sa, please ensure that you are audible to everybody. Read from this stanza in the second stanza.
In the second stanza, the poet describes the dirty classroom. On the walls are displayed the names of people who have given donations. The bust of Shakespeare is displayed in the clear background of the sky. Walls have pictures of the beautiful Taros Valley as well as a map of the world. The children's eye can only view a narrow road enclosed with a dull sky. It is quite a dreary and depressing place for children.
Please continue further.
In the third stanza, the pensive poet suddenly turns belligerent and feels that Shakespeare is wicked. This is because he misleads the children. He shows them a beautiful world of ships, sun, and love, which is not only unreal for them but has a corrupting influence on these children and instigates them to steal and try to escape from their crammed holes. Their existence is indeed very sad.
Now, in the second stanza, the poet describes the dirty classroom. The condition of the classroom. The first stanza he told about the children who were sitting in the class. Right? The condition of the children, a boy with a denial disease, a girl which is who's putting her head down and she's burdened with poverty and condition. There's a paper seeming void with flat sides. So with the condition of the children is told in the first stanza. But in the second stanza, the classroom, what all it consists of, what is there hanging on the walls, so that is given there. On the walls are displayed the names of the people who have given donations. The bust of Shakespeare is displayed in the clear background of the sky. There's a picture of Shakespeare, who was a great playwright, that is displayed in the clear background of the sky. Walls have pictures of the beautiful Trioleis Valley, as well as a map of world. And third picture is of the map of the world. The children's eyes can only view a narrow road enclosed with the dull sky. It is quite a dreary and depressing place for children. Now, this stanza is very ironical actually. This is ironical in terms of what the condition of the children is. They live in an untidy, filthy situations. All the cameras are off. Again, I don't know the reason why. So switch them on fast. All the people, these children, they live in an untidy, filthy environment where there is dust, where there is smoke, where there is no hygiene is maintained at all, right? People are illiterate. They are so poor that they cannot even get the basic essentials of life. Now, in this kind of an environment, the pictures hanging on the wall are of Shakespeare, the great playwright, and the picture is at the background of the clear sky. Second is, walls have the pictures of beautiful Trioleis Valley. Now, Trioleis Valley is a wonderful place. It is full of nature. Beauty of nature is up to the brim in this place, right? And the third is the map of the world. Now, the children's eyes can only view a narrow road because they have seen that poverty. So they are restricted to that only, right? It is quite dreary and depressing place for children, but that's the way they have been living till now, right? Chale, let's move on, Darshika, to the third stanza. Third stanza, aapne padh liya na beta?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, in the third stanza, the pensive poet suddenly turns belligerent. He turns aggressive and feels that Shakespeare is wicked. Now, from this stanza onward, the tone is somewhere harsh and rude. He calls William Shakespeare, the great playwright, without whom we cannot even imagine English literature. He calls him as wicked. He's called wicked. This is because he misleads the children. He shows them a beautiful world of ships, sun, which is not only unreal, but also has a corrupting influence on these children. Now, these images, they actually tempt these children. And because of these temptations, they take the path, they take the mispath, are misdirected towards crimes. So he says that all these things have a negative impact on children, which instigates them to steal and try to escape from their cramped holes. So their existence is indeed very sad. He didn't find the first, the poet, when he talks about the Shakespeare as a wicked man, he calls Shakespeare as wicked man because he feels that whatever picture, whatever images Shakespeare is showing, that is unreal and is not true, and it cannot be true for them at any point, right? Chaliye, Darshika, please continue.
These emaciated children are so thin that it appears that they are wearing only skin. The spectacles they are wearing have glass which has been broken and mended. Their entire appearance reeks of their deprivation. The poet shows his outrage by suggesting that the maps on their walls should show huge slums instead of beautiful scenic graphics. Finally, in the last stanza, the poet reveals the appalling truth that there can be no change for the better unless a governor, a school inspector, or an educationist or a visitor comes to the school. The map in their classroom is the only medium for the children to view the world outside their slums. The windows of their classroom shut them and confine them to their world of poverty and helplessness.
Now, these emaciated children are so thin that it appears that they are wearing only skins. The children are actually malnutrition. So it's like their skins are, their bones are peeping through their skins. So much bones are visible. So the spectacles they are wearing have glasses which have been broken and mended. So it looks like as if stone has kept on them. The entire appearance reeks of their deprivation. The poet shows his outrage by suggesting that the maps on the walls should show youth slums instead of beautiful scenic graphics. So he says that, you know, these children, I mean, they are really malnutrition. They do not have sufficient food to eat. The glasses which they're wearing, they are heavy and uncomfortable. It feels like as if bottle cocks are placed, right? So their entire appearance is of deprivation. They do not have essentials. They're so poor. So the poet shows his outrage by suggesting that that is not the true map for them. ये जो map है जिसमें they could see the Trilease Valley, which is full of beauty of nature, where there is Shakespeare's head full of wise thoughts and wisdom and learning is there. And then he finds that they poor, being the poor people, life is absolutely blank for them, holding nothing at all, right? So the entire appearance reeks of them for them is deprivation. The poet shows his, you can say, outrage by suggesting that the maps on the walls should show youth slums instead of beautiful scenic graphics. So the map should definitely show places first of all. Chaliye, let's move on to the last stanza. Vidyanshi, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Vidyanshi,
Yes, ma'am.
please continue reading. Finally, in the last stanza.
Finally, in the last stanza, the poet reveals that appealing truth that there can be no change for the better unless a governor, a school inspector, or an educationist or a visitor comes to the school. The map in their classroom is the only medium for the children to view the world outside their slums. The windows of their classrooms shut them and confine them to their world of poverty and helplessness. Next, poet appeals to those people who are in power to liberate these slums children from the
Horrendous
horror
life.
of life that they are leading. He also exhorts the people themselves to break open these windows which appear to have sealed the fate of these children. He would like to see these children bask in the educational facilities in the world and run carefree on the golden sands and enjoy a new lease of life and freedom. The poet earnestly desires that each and every should be able to enjoy the fundamental right of freedom. They should have access to all kinds of book, new as well as old. They should also be able to learn from nature around themselves. Spender ends the poem on a positive note as he expresses his belief that people who are ignited by the spirit of knowledge and learning are the ones who create history. It is the moral liability of everyone to break barriers between the haves and the have nots and give a meaningful education to all. For history, for history remembers only those people who are educated and have enlightened themselves for a better world.
Okay. Now, in the last stanza, the poet reveals the appalling truth that there can be no change for the better unless a governor, a school inspector, or an educationist or a visitor comes to a school. So the poet says that there won't be any change till the time the powerful people like the governor, the school inspector, or education come and visit the school and see the actual condition of the children here. The map in the classrooms is the only medium for the children to view the world outside their slum. So the children even want to go to the places which are shown there on the map, right? They want to expand their limitations also. But the windows of the classrooms shut them and confine them to the world of poverty and helplessness. But they are not allowed to look outside. I mean, the windows of the classroom shut, so they do not know what actually, how much happiness, how much freedom, and how much opportunities life may provide them to succeed. Now, poet appeals to these people who are in power to liberate these some children from the horrendous life. Horrendous is the terrifying life that they are leading. He also exhorts the people themselves to break open these windows, which appear to have sealed the fate of these children. That he believes that these windows have sealed away their fate, right? So he would like to see these children back in the educational facilities in this world and run carefree on the golden sands and enjoy a new phase of and enjoy a new lease of life and freedom. So the poet desires that every child should be given freedom. He should be able to enjoy his freedom. He should live in that carefree environment rather than just being burdened because of poverty and leading a life which is miserable for everybody. Spender ends the poem on a positive note as he expresses his belief that people who are ignited by the spirit of knowledge and learning can be gathered only when they are having their bellies full. So basic essentials should be provided to them and they should be taken out of this restricted environment, right? So that they get more chances to think, they get more opportunities to think, and then they would come up to various conclusions and understand various concepts. So it is the moral liability of everyone to break barriers between the haves and have-nots and give a meaning to of education for all. So for history remembers only those people who are educated and have enlightened themselves for a better world. Now in the story, we do not know what happens. I mean, whether somebody does something or not. But the poet, through this poem, he wants to wake up the government officials, the inspectors, the educationists, and other powerful authorities to wake up and have a peep into the life of the people of the slum children. They lead a miserable life, somewhere horrifying life. The families are not educated. There's no kind of awareness. So there's a lot of troubles which we find there. But in this particular poem, we see that in the slum also somewhere, the poet is urging powerful people to come and visit this area so that they can bring about a change in the condition of the poor children and give them the opportunity to go and expose in the lovely mix of lovely nature and then to grab knowledge and jot it down, right? Okay. Here we have finished with the summarization. Just a moment. I hope I'm clear till this point. Anji, videos on, please.